Good evening, and welcome to Affording the Dream at UNCF Town Hall. Tonight, we're talking about something that has shaped generations of families across this country, the dream of a college education. For decades, higher education has been seen as one of the most reliable pathways to opportunity. A chance to not only earn a degree, but to build a career, support a family, and create economic mobility that can change the trajectory of an entire household. But for many students today, particularly first-generation students in Black and Brown communities, that dream is becoming increasingly difficult to afford. Over the last 20 years, the cost of college tuition has risen dramatically. At the same time, student loan debt across the United States has grown to more than $1.7 trillion, leaving many families asking a difficult question. Is college still within reach? For students who are first in their family to pursue higher education, the barriers can become even greater. From navigating the financial aid system to understanding scholarships, grants, and the real cost of attending college. Tonight, we're going to explore those challenges, but just as importantly, we're going to talk about solutions. How can institutions, policymakers, philanthropists, and communities work together to ensure that talent and ambition, not family income, determine who has access to higher education? And what role do organizations like UNCF, which has helped thousands of students pursue their dreams, play in bridging that gap? That's the conversation we're going to have tonight. Let's meet our incredible panel. Dr. Shante Bolton, President and CEO of Columbia College Chicago and an Alabama A&M graduate. My colleague, Rasheem Rook, Assistant Vice President of Program Management at UNCF and a Howard University graduate. And Dominica Washington, Founder and Executive Director of She Chicago and a Clark Atlanta University graduate. Thank you all for being here tonight and for joining this important conversation. Let's begin with the question that many families are asking right now. For generations, parents told their children that education was the key to opportunity. But today, when families began looking at tuition, housing, books, and other expenses, the cost can feel overwhelming. Panel, what are the biggest factors driving the rising cost of education today? And how has that changed the way families think about pursuing higher education?
Well, I think there are several. There's not one singular thing, but what's really important is that the expectations of our students have changed over time, as well as the expectations of parents. And so with that rising level of requirement for excellence and a cultivated and curated experience on our campus, it has led to contributing to rising costs in addition to the cost of delivering the academic program. And those things are things like student services, how we support the student, tutoring, remedial support, and to also be able to entertain and engage our students. They want to not only learn, but they want to have a fun experience as they're navigating through their academic education. And several of these things add to the cost of what a degree or the affordability of an institution.
Rasheem?
Yeah, when we think about the expansion of services, which means you have, of course, more fees, things that are being charged that may or may not show up on the tuition bill. But then the tuition bill alone, the cost of college has gone up, and it has outpaced our earnings trajectory over time. So it even feels like it costs more to go to college because we're not earning at the same proportional rate as the cost. But to your second point, in terms of how has that impacted, and when you think about tuition, fees, room and board, books, transportation, all these things that show up within the cost of attendance. And then we look at that big number. At one point in time, hope was that engine that
Right.
sent the kid off to college.
Right.
Because you're going to come back and you're going to do something for our community.
You're going to uplift the family.
But now it's fear. Fear is at the center of this college experience. So that's how the family now is engaging. You know, we can send you to college, but can we pay for it? Can we keep you there? And we don't want you to start this experience and not be able to end it. So I think that just bare bones, things are going up. We're not making as much as we used to, proportionally to the rising cost of college. And now our families are just fearful that they can't afford to send their children.
What I would add is that financial aid has made college more accessible. across the board. And I believe that there's something to that accessibility that allows institutions to raise the prices. With the price constantly going up, even though financial aid has made it accessible, more accessible, it's also taken away things like Pell Grants and other things that first generation college students use to pursue their post-secondary education. And with that scaffold, if you will, being removed, it puts those students, those borrowers, in a position to acquire and accrue more debt than people who have, generational wealth or whatever else behind them to support their transition into college. And what I'm often seeing with the parents of the students that I work with is that their objective is to avoid the accrual of more debt. They have enough to pay for. They already experience so many other destabilizing factors like community violence and, issues with food security and things like that. And the prospect of sending their child into an institution and accruing more debt within their family without the guarantee that this degree is actually going to do something for us. That is substantiated by fear, like you said. And I think that ultimately that's one of the big reasons that you see families navigating away from college and looking toward other options when it comes to financing their kids' education.
Good point. And for many first-generation college students, the challenges aren't just financial, it's also informational. So how do we equip parents who did not attend college and their students and guide them about how the system works? How does that lack of familiarity create additional barriers?
I really do think we wait too long to start with the education and the awareness process. We really have to be more intentional, starting much younger, not just engaging the future student or scholar, but also their parents and their communities. I'm a first-generation student myself. I did not come from a community in which I had lots of examples of college graduates, and so I didn't know what that process was, and it was daunting. I understood that I was being pushed towards this post-secondary thing, whatever that was, and I had dreams, but no one really sat down and explained what financial literacy was. They didn't talk not just about financial aid, but also about other forms of debt that are predatory or can be predatory with college students, like credit cards.
Exactly.
Right? And how you manage refunds that you may get because there's an excess. If you're blessed to have an excess and get it, how you're utilizing that. And so I really do believe that we have to start much younger. I do not think it's too soon to start having these conversations about what your aspirations are educationally, career-wise, academically, as early as elementary school, and pulling those parents in and informing them of what a FAFSA is, informing them of different options of scholarships and how they go after those and to apply for them. Not all scholarships require an essay. Some are video, some are interviews, there's different forms, but people don't access these things because they oftentimes don't know that they exist or may not know where to find those resources.
As a first generation college student, I knew nothing. I cannot even tell you how I was able to apply to college, what that process was like. I was just flying by the seat of my pants. I didn't have a college counselor or high school counselor to help me. I was doing it all on my own. My mother had a GED, so it was all new for me, and I had to navigate it on my own.
Well, I'll certainly say that I will give credit to the guidance counselor and my coaches in high school. We did not have a lot of students that graduated from the high school in which I am a graduate of to go to college. And so it was really important that they wrapped around the students who had that desire and had the aptitude for it. So I'm grateful for that. But it was the Alumni Association of Alabama A&M University that found out about what I was doing at my high school, my background and story, and they wrapped around me and they made it very clear I had no other option but to go to Alabama A&M. And I'm grateful for that. But I still was lost in trying to figure out this whole thing. So I thank God they were able to help me to navigate. How do you apply for this scholarship? How do you go about doing this? And then the things that happen after you get awarded. Because people think you fill out this form, they give it to you, and then you're just done.
Money.
There may be steps additional steps you have to take for you to complete that process. And it may be that you have to do it each year you're in college.
Just as a side point, you said throw out their free money. I run the scholarship department at UNCF, and I try when I have opportunities to talk to these students. I tell them this is not free money. You have to work for this. You've got to maintain a GPA. You've got to go to class. You've got to be in the library. You've got to have study. Like, we're not just giving you money and it's free. No, you just because you're not giving us something in return, you've got to do something for yourself so that you can maintain. But to your point about the partnerships, what can be done to help families, especially first-gen kids who are coming from families who never went to college. It's a bunch of things that really have to happen at the same time in concert with each other. I think that the partnership between higher education and secondary school is lacking. It needs to be strengthened. I'm a staunch believer that those of us who work in higher education and have worked in it for years and decades, we have a professional vantage point so that when the industry of higher education shifts, pivots, or changes, we can then advise people effectively and properly. What tends to happen is when you have the high school guidance counselor who's not connected to the industry of higher education and doesn't track that pivot or change, their advisement may come from 2 decades ago. And it now may be obsolete. I think there needs to be a connection between what's going on in the higher education space and in the secondary space. And I also think the higher education space needs to do a little introspection. And sometimes we get to colleges and universities and we think we know it all. And the problem with that, there's this gift that we want to give to students, but it's actually a curse. It's referred to as the curse of knowledge. So we're throwing all these acronyms out at them. We're throwing them FAFSA and SAI, EFC when we were in school. But we're not explaining it. We're not explaining the process. We're not explaining why you need to do this and how it impacts the amount of aid you can get and what does it mean to accumulate aid against your cost of attendance. What does a cost of attendance mean? We assume these kids know, or we don't care to explain it to them. Either way, it's bad. So there's some stuff we need to do on the higher education side to say, all right, these kids are showing up. They don't know what we know. We've got to take their hand and we've got to walk them through it. And let's connect with them early on. Because if you're waiting till your senior year of high school, it is way too late. It is wildly too late. So there is a lot of work that needs to be done on the front end. I would go as far as middle school to start having these conversations about how education and trajectory can land you into the career. Not pick your career, because as a 7th grader, you don't know what you want to do for the rest of your life, but we gotta be able to present them with options. You can't see what you can't imagine.
Absolutely.
So if we work with them early enough to at least hear the different trajectories, get them into high school, start thinking about how you're going to finance this, and these are the ways you can get scholarships and grants, and this is what it means when you get a grant from a school. Some schools will give you all grants. Some schools you got to go work for the scholarships. What does that mean for you? Are you ready? Are you built for that? And then as we march them off to higher education, we get them into college, then we say, okay, now we have you. What does it mean to be making satisfactory academic progress and how that might affect your financial aid? We don't tell them.
There's one piece I want to push back on.
Sure, I love a pushback.
The collegiate experience and understanding the finances, particularly for first-gen students, cannot start at middle school because the parents or whoever the caregiver is that will have to be a support system to them. I almost feel like you have to start earlier. This is why I said elementary school, because a part of preparing them for life after high school is preparing the people who will be their village or community around them. For those who have the privilege of having someone, they may not have gone to college, but they may be a wild supporter and encourager and the reason why that student is able to matriculate when things get tough. As a first-gen student, oftentimes you don't have someone that you can go back and have these cultivating conversations with, because the people in your home, even if they're not college educated, they don't know these things. And you can't wait to the senior year to teach them either, because they have to be able to process this stuff. And you want the families whose information has to go into these financial aid forms to understand why they're asking for this information, and it's not that they're trying to be in your business, right? But they need this information to help this student to be able to determine what financial aid they can get in terms of grants or availability of loans. I really, really encourage students to start as early as possible thinking about it. There are scholarships they can accumulate before they get to high school. There are ways that you can start to accumulate funds, but if people don't know, we don't talk about it. And in our communities, whether that's our churches, our neighborhood, civic centers, through community organizations, how we partner. I will agree with you on this. The higher education model is broken. Some may argue that it's fragmented. I think it's broken, and I think the future will belong to institutions who are willing to really challenge the way in which we support our students. We have to defend the value of education. Education has been the pathway for so many students of color, particularly, and impoverished students, to not only change their lives, but to change the lives of the community around them. And at the same time, I think that higher ed has to do a better job of being more agile and responsive to the demands of now. And as the job market has changed, it has not kept up with pace with the cost of the degree. You do not want to tell them this is a valuable education, this is a wonderful experience, and then I get a job after that I can't afford to pay back this debt. So I can't buy a house, I can't have a family, I can't afford to have a car. Right? So I think there are some points that we absolutely align on, but I think there's also some areas where we could debate.
And all this informs me and my work going forward. Just so I'm clear, you're saying that earlier intervention piece, as early as elementary school, should involve the financial aid.
I do think you need to have financial conversations with parents and caregivers as early as possible, and you start to engage the student, middle school at the least, but definitely high school, because then they're at an age they can start to better understand what finances mean, what money means, because that's a life skill. Whether you go to college or not, you need to understand how a dollar operates and where it stretches and where it does not, right?
Right. Well, even when financial aid exists, many families say the process of finding and securing it can be incredibly complicated. From filling out the FAFSA to searching for scholarships, navigating the system can feel like a maze. Rashim, why does the financial aid process feel so confusing for so many families?
I believe it feels confusing because it's disjointed. It is not a linear experience where you just do FAFSA, reach out to the school, get an idea of how much money you have. I think the timetables that are involved, especially for first-year students, trying to get them packaged for institutional aid, and then to see what they may need to fill in with loans, either in the student's name or the Parent Plus loan or anything else, and then having that before you can make a decision as to whether or not you want to go to that school. I think all of that complicates the financial aid process. And I think there's not a lot of clarity on the overall goal of financial aid, which is to cover the cost of attendance. A lot of students don't know that they can accumulate as much aid up to the total dollar amount of that cost of attendance. And they may stop at, a $5,000 or $10,000 scholarship here or there, but if you're at a school that's annual cost of attendance is $40,000, $50,000, $60,000, you can raise that amount of money, and they're not really clear. And then I'm gonna be honest, a lot of them are scared. They're scared of rejection. They're scared of the process. They're scared that maybe their writing skills aren't up to snuff for this essay that they've got to do. And then we do have students who are blessed to have parents. Even if they're first gen, their parents who are trying to be there and stand in the experience with them. But then there are a bunch of students who don't, who are coming from households where their mother disappeared and they haven't seen that woman for the last 3 years. And now this FAFSA is asking me to have my mother sign off on something, and I don't know where she is. And then that leads to an even more complicated process, which is becoming an independent student, which I had to go through. So I think all of these different pieces kind of complicate it and make it a big monster in the minds of a lot of our students and families.
Yeah. There are also a lot of misconceptions about what college really costs, and you kind of touched on that. Some families assume they won't qualify for aid and never apply, like you just said. What are some of the biggest misunderstandings you see when it comes to scholarships, grants, and financial aid?
That is probably one of the biggest misunderstandings. My family makes too much money. My SAI is too high for me to qualify for need-based aid. It's because they don't understand that your SAI represents a dollar amount that they believe, the federal government believes your family can contribute to the education.
And what's SAI?
Your SAI is your student aid index, and this is a piece that they don't understand. The federal government has them fill out this FAFSA. The FAFSA is taking all of this household financial data and information to accrue what the house, to see what the household income is, and then make a determination of what they feel the family can contribute to that education. Now, if you're coming from a low income background like me, it's gonna be zero. So I'm gonna get full federal aid. But if that family maybe has two incomes, or a mother or father that's making a little bit of money, and that SAI creeps up, maybe it's $20,000, maybe it's $25,000. Oh my God, they think I have this money and I'm not going to be eligible for need-based aid. If it's a $20,000 SAI and the cost of attendance to that school is $50,000, that means you have a $30,000 gap. $30,000 gap. That means you have need of $30,000.
Right,
you have demonstrated need. You can apply for a need-based aid that can take care of that gap, but they don't understand that.
I don't think they truly understand what need-based means.
They don't. They don't. So I think that if they could get those answers up front, in recognizing as the professionals, we need to recognize they don't know what they don't know. So that I don't expect them to come in and ask these questions. I offer it up. This is how I start. Let's look at the cost of attendance. Let's look at your SAI. Let's map it out and see what your aid gap is. Okay, yeah, your SAI is about $20,000, but you're going to Howard University and the cost of attendance is $64,000. You got space. Let's go find that money.
That's a lot of money. High schools and community organizations often play a critical role in helping students navigate the process. What should schools be doing differently to ensure that every student understands the financial options available to them?
So one thing that I'll say is that when it comes to like the financial obligations of college, or even just planning to attend, high schools do attempt to do a lot of work around informing students. What I think needs to happen is a more concrete partnership with parents. Parents are often so isolated from student experience right now. They're not invited in for disciplinary things. You know, you just look up and your kid getting sent home, or they were in school suspension. They're not invited in for conversations around college until around junior year. And I think that, you know, from a systems level, a school district, especially as large as Chicago Public Schools, there needs to be a strategic approach to ensuring that there is partnership with parents, especially for first generation college students. It's just a very isolating experience even on their end. You start to have an identity crisis. You don't identify with your friends and family anymore. You start to have different priorities as a first generation college student, but then you're also somewhere in this bubble because you don't have the privilege of other students. So you might have to work while you're a student and all of these other things that happen. And I think that the major thing that schools and community groups can do, including ones like mine, is be very intentional and strategic about what partnerships with parents should look like.
And for students who are first in their family to pursue higher education, mentorship can be especially important. How do programs that connect students with mentors help demystify the college process?
So we work on two ends of that at SHE Chicago. So there's the demystification of the college process, and then there's also the demystification of, you know, the corporate world. Like a lot of kids, they just don't know what's out there. You know, careers are changing. AI is running stuff right now. And they don't have that exposure. So at SHE Chicago, one of the things that we do, we host college tours. We directly connect our students with advisors at the colleges that they are interested in, but we do the research, admittedly. We don't have partnerships with colleges yet, but we do the research once we know where they want to go and ensure that they're connected. Another thing that we do to demystify the college entry process is connect them to alumni associations. For example, I graduated from Clark Atlanta, and I have a couple of girls who want to go to Clark, so I pull mentors from our alumni association. They also connect with Howard, Alabama A&M, across the board, Chicago chapters, so they get mentorship in that way. In addition to that, there are also opportunities to partner with corporations. So Motorola, we've done McDonald's Corp, like different corporations to give girls exposure to the opportunities that earning a degree can afford you. And so, yeah, we just boots on the ground and we expose them to as much as we possibly can up front to at least, build that sense of hope while also, identifying clear pathways to reach the goals that they have.
Love that, love that. Now let's turn our attention to solutions. Organizations like UNCF have worked decades to ensure that talented students have access to higher education, particularly at historically Black colleges and universities. But closing the affordability gap will require a broader effort. What role does philanthropy play in expanding access to college? And how important are scholarship programs in making higher education possible for students who might otherwise be left out? And you both talked about this.
Yes, and I would just reiterate the point earlier. Philanthropy is mission critical. It is essential to our ability to support more families, more students to have an access if they choose the pathway of higher education. And I encourage organizations like UNCF to continue to lean into your mission, even in spite of the current climate that we're dealing with, because it can be easy to be distracted. And it also, I'm sure there are families who are concerned, will these organizations exist? Will we have these pathways? Will they go away? And I can tell you, certainly from a higher education lens, we are trying to be good partners with these organizations to help identify students and to ensure that the dollars they invest are going to be well placed and that these students just continue to have access. I'd also say that the importance of affordability is critical in the sense that we know that anything worth having, we're going to have an investment in. And I look at a college degree not as a expense, but as an investment. But you have to be smart with investments. We don't make those haphazardly. We're thoughtful, we plan, we calculate with them. And you need to do the same thing with a college education. A part of what we sort of talked about earlier, especially when you talk about Chicago and how you take the students on the college tours, but still not necessarily knowing where to find all the right resources and how to make sure that your students and their parents or caregivers know where to look for these things when there's not a resource like a Chicago in place. Three things I'm really proud of at Columbia College Chicago that we've put in place this year, and this discussion today has affirmed it is much needed here in this city. One, we do sessions with guidance counselors to tell them about what we do, how we're doing it differently and what's unique, but also how they can support the students, particularly coming out of Chicago public schools. I'm very passionate about us making sure that we keep a pipeline open for grads. The second thing is pulling parents and students together to have informational sessions about financial aid, scholarship opportunities, those that come through the federal government, but also private organizations, and even scholarships that I have available to give to students that they may not know that are there. And we want to make sure that that's available. And then the third thing is reaching out to community-based organizations and looking for those partnerships. So Dominica, I know you said that Chicago has not established a partnership yet, but you have someone right here in the South Loop of Chicago willing to have that conversation so we can support those students who have an interest, particularly in creative careers and professions. That is what our bailiwick and our strength is. And they get to not only have an affordable education, but they can do it right here in the city of Chicago and contribute back when they start their careers. So you definitely are not alone in this. And I look forward to us having conversations about where we can go with this.
Sure.
There are two specific things that pop to mind when we talk about philanthropy and their support. Scholarships tend to skew towards the high flyers, those students who have the 3.2s, 3.3s, 3.5s, 4.0s. Philanthropists need to do more work at changing that paradigm to look for what's referred to as the mighty middle. We have one major scholarship with Fidelity Financials, and they want to give money to those students who sit right there at the middle coming out of high school, because they know once they get to high school and they have the supports, they can be just as successful as the kid who graduated with a 4.0. So that's a piece, but the other piece that I think philanthropists can kind of lean in on is not just giving money for scholarships. We need emergency student aid.
Yes.
We need wraparound services. And if we're going to really be honest with the context, they say 1 out of 4 black high school students live below the poverty line. Poverty line, federal government says, is a family of 4 with a household income of $30,000 or less. $30,000 or less. So you mean to tell me the family of 4 with $40,000 or less isn't poverty?
Right. Right.
See, there is poverty, and then there is near poverty. There is financial fragility. And when you add in financial fragility, approximately half of our black students who are graduating from these high schools and going off to college are coming from households that experience financial fragility. So when they get to college, if a laptop breaks and they don't have a way of replacing that laptop, they can't get their work done. If they live a certain distance from campus and they have to drive back and forth and they roll over a bed of nails and they got 4 flat tires, they can no longer get to campus. If there is food insecurity, housing insecurity, other needs that have to be met, that if they aren't met, will pull these kids right out of their experience. So yes, we applaud the money that's given for scholarships, but it's not just philanthropy. Schools have also got to create their own pots, and they've got to engage the philanthropic donors to say, hey, we want to have a pot of money so that if a kid has an issue, we can directly provide wraparound services and not have to rely on UNCF.
Are there steps that institutions can take to reduce the financial burden on students, aside from scholarships?
I look forward to hearing this answer before I chime in.
It's something that was brought up earlier that you mentioned, and I don't want it to go over people's heads. When you talked about financial literacy with respect to refunds, college has become a new millennium hustle. Like, there are some students who do understand that I can go to college and get a fat refund. And they may do something real dumb like I did with my first fat refund. I bought a car that broke down 2 weeks later.
I did a lot of shopping.
But if a student understands, I have this money that's coming back to me in a refund because I have been blessed with getting all of this aid, then I know how to budget it. I know how to set it to the side. I know that if all of a sudden a fee pops up that I didn't anticipate, I can go to my bank account, use that money to take care of that. So I think that's one way. If we can do a little more work with helping our students understand what they can do with the surplus funds that they get outside of once they have paid for all of their tuition and fees.
I'm curious, Domenica, what your thoughts would be in how institutions of higher ed can better support the students once they come to us with reinforcing things that maybe organizations like yours are teaching them. Maybe even in their homes, they're getting exposed to what you have to budget, even if they're not strong at it. I mean, let's be honest, some people who make 6 figures aren't good at budgeting money and managing money. So we're asking an 18 to 24-year-old to make very mature and seasoned decisions when they're barely away from home for the first time and probably operating from both a place of fear and fear of being left out of things. So you take that money and you want to have the car, you want to go to the party, you want to have the nice outfit and things. But I'm wondering from the perspective of a community-based organization, what might be things that institutions of higher ed could do to better support the students as they have to make these decisions?
So I think that, I'm just gonna be very candid. At the end of the day, I think it all goes back to like strategic mentorship models. I think that when a child enters a university with such a huge financial responsibility, your financial aid counselor should be doing more than just telling you, this is how much money you get, this is what your refund check is going to be. That financial aid counselor, and it could be a professional development thing that needs to happen, but that financial aid counselor should also be able to do something like what you said, like inform what you can do with this refund check. You can, send it back and not use it. You can, use it for, whatever else the case may be, but help to guide the child in terms of the financial piece. But I also feel like that's even relevant for the social piece. There are so many developmental strides that a student has to take entering college. And I don't think that universities have strategic enough approaches to mentoring students through college. And even when it comes to selecting a major, or your academic advisor ensuring that you're on track for graduation as you go, I think that there needs to be the employees within the institution, the people who run the offices, that run the systems, also need to be equipped with whatever professional development skills are necessary to take their bucket of students and provide that wraparound mentorship and support.
Yeah.
I think that that's a great point to make, and it's also where the value of student employment and student work comes in, because you're working in a professional environment while you're obtaining your education, and through those serendipitous collisions and interactions in the office, you're naturally learning things and you have teachable moments. And that's one of the things at my institutions, that all the institutions I've been at, I've talked about with my staff members. You are a part of cultivating the experience and ultimately the person that this scholar will become. And you play a role. Our faculty are critical to teaching in the classroom, and for us it's studios and labs, but it is also important as a staff member that you show up with the fullness of your lived experiences to feed into them, because that is a form of mentorship.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, everybody's a teacher. Like if you're working at the school and you are engaged, I don't care if you're the cafeteria staff. Everybody in this institution is a teacher, and there are ways to strategically staff an institution where each person owns the responsibility of shepherding the students that they interact with. So
Absolutely. One thing I do want to do on behalf of the sector, because I know there are some colleges, HBCUs, non-HBCUs, that they do have emergency fund programs in place. I've certainly championed those, and I made sure that that was funded at my institution where I am now. You make very good points, because there are things outside of what happens in the classroom that a student might require support for. I also am very big on, we need to do more talking and open, candid conversations about mental health and how that shows up with that student as they matriculate post-secondary, and they don't necessarily have the grounding of the family or the friends or the systems that have been in place to support them for 12 years of their academic experience in K through 12. And that can be a huge factor. And it also, believe it or not, mental health can play a role in how students engage with money and finances and how they think about the use of it or not. And so I think these are very good points. And I believe that the higher ed model really needs to be more agile. This is what I meant earlier when I said the model is broken, it's outdated, and we need to be more agile and responsive to what are the needs of our students now, and anticipating how to be prepared for the students of the future.
Finally, let's see, if policymakers were watching tonight, what is one change, whether at the federal, state, or local level, that could make the biggest difference in helping students afford college?
I'll say it, get out of the way. Get out of the way. Bring in the people who are the practitioners in this field. Bring in the people who have studied this, bring in the people who know what they're talking about. And stop thinking and believing that because you were elected that you know what is best. You would not do that to a physician. I was elected. No, I don't need an operation. No, I was elected. No, I don't need to have this arm splinted. No, I was elected. You would not do that to anyone else in any other field. We have spent our lives working in this, understanding it from a high level all the way down to the littlest detail. Get out of the way and believe the people who do this job.
Yes. I 1,000% agree with that. They have to be informed by those closest to the work. And that's closest to the work of the families, in the communities. That's those closest to the work in the sector. That's K through 12 and higher ed. We need them to serve as catalysts to change, not inhibitors to it. right? Leadership is not just about being right. It's about doing what's right when it's the most difficult moment to do it in. It's about being able to push people toward versions of themselves that they can't imagine, and at the same time, challenging them in a way that still has hope in the other hand, and not telling students that higher education is not relevant. You don't need education, because I guarantee you this, the rules of the game will change when more students stop pursuing it. All of a sudden, you will now need it. There was a time that you did not require higher education.
Right.
But then it was a requirement and a barrier to entry of jobs. Then you saw an influx and a shift pushing toward more students, particularly students in disenfranchised communities, getting college degrees. Now we're back at, you don't need an education. You could just go get a certificate. You could look at this AI or YouTube video, and you'll be able to have a whole profession or make six figures. Don't believe the falsity of this moment. You gotta be able to see beyond that. And that's why I think it's important that community-based organizations, that the philanthropic community and the education sectors have to work together, and we have to be intentional and unrelenting. I've had multiple times in the last year that I've been in, actually 2 years, because it's been a 2-year journey. The last 2 years I've had to go to DC and had 30,000 step days. Okay, because I'm beating down the doors. Yeah. These are people who may align with your values, they may not. They may come from neighborhoods that you're familiar with, they may not. What I care about is those who are making decisions that are affecting not only the current students, but the students who are to come. It matters, and it's a real thing, and we won't see the effects of it until after it's too late, if people believe this false narrative that education is not relevant and that you don't need it.
Can I make that really practical as well? Please clap it up for her, because Dr. Bolton hit it on the head. The idea that you don't need education is higher education is easily refuted by the data. Students with a 4-year degree will make over $1 million more in their lifetime than someone without a 4-year degree. When they say just settle on the trades because you don't need a college degree, the data is out there. The people with the trade will start off making money, but when you got that 4-year degree, you will far surpass them in terms of your earning potential over your lifetime. They say, well, just stick to something that's tech related. Even the tech related versus humanities or liberal arts. The person with the liberal arts degree will catch up and surpass the technical degree graduate within a decade and then be making more than them. So this idea that education is not needed, you could stop where you're at because you're good. You're fine. I'm not a conspiracy theorist. But I do believe the education system is doing exactly what it was created to do. The colleges, the university system, the college system was created to prop up and perpetuate privilege. And when it was created, we weren't the ones of privilege. So what it's doing now, it's not that it's broken, it actually needs to be broken. It's doing exactly what it was created to do. So we gotta stand up and say, hey, no kid, stay in school. Don't believe the hype. Get that degree, make that money, but have patience. Because you're not gonna get it right out of school. Year 5, year 10, year 15, look at what your life looks like then. So, I'm sorry, that's what I have to say.
No, this is good.
Well, we also want to hear from members of our audience tonight. Let's begin with our first question.
Good evening. My name is Ed Briscoe. My question is, I'm the parent of a high school sophomore. What should families be doing to prepare financially for college, and what should we be doing now?
In my response to that, I would say start having the conversation about what college costs now with a sophomore. Don't wait till senior year, and then start looking at examples of what scholarship applications look like. For us, they're annual, and it's not a series of applications you can apply for, accrue, and then they graduate and have the money. But no, they've got to apply their graduating year of high school. But these applications look relatively the same every year. So pull a couple examples. Start working through some essays, some video prompt responses. Get them in the habit of not just doing the application, but completing it. Making sure that the application package is full. And then once they have that muscle memory, you can send them on pilot their senior year. But start having those conversations about affordability now and build into them the need for flexibility, because it may mean the most affordable school isn't their first choice.
Okay, thank you.
I would say, I think that there's like a workflow. I think that you can sit down with your student. I've done this with sophomores and freshmen before, but I think that it's important to sit down and map out the next 4 years of their lives and help them to conceptualize, these are the steps that we'll be taking to ensure that you have the opportunity for post-secondary education. It is not too far of a reach, and yes, teenagers, you know, they go back and forth in what they want to do and things like that. But I think it's important to help your child to understand that there is a flow to life. Finances is a part of it, and that will help them to make the connection between the cost of things and what it takes to respond to accommodate that cost feature.
Thank you, thank you.
Thank you. Next question. What's your name and what's your question?
Christina Willis, and I know that student debt can follow you for a very long time. What strategies can you take as a student to avoid taking out too much debt?
I really do believe that you have to understand what the debt is you're taking out and the types, because not all debt is the same and how it functions. Also, not all funds that you receive you have to pay back, right? There's a difference between a scholarship and a grant, right, versus a loan, which is the debt that you have to pay back. I think students should not take out more than what they absolutely need, and we've talked about that earlier. It's also important to have conversations with, I think, financial advisors. I think institutions and colleges should provide that service for free to students when they're in undergrad. I'm talking about starting their freshman year, so that they can be prepared and smarter every year until they matriculate, and to start planning based on the type of career that you're going to have. What are the average salaries, and how do you map out the correlation of what your career pathway is with the amount of debt that you take out, so that you're not saying, I'm just going to go 4 years, I'm going to take out all of this debt, and then I'll think about it after I graduate. But the career pathway you have and what they pay in that profession may not be aligned, which is why I think you have to start being mindful and doing financial planning sooner than later.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next question.
Hello, my name is Trade Moore, and as you all know, not all students want to pursue a traditional 4-year degree program. So what are some other educational pathways that some families should utilize?
Kind of touched on that.
Yeah, of course, you do have certificate programs. There's licensures that you can get. There are trades that you can go through. In full transparency, I am a fan of 4-year degrees. I do believe, based on the data and what we see, that you will earn more over a lifetime. Now, with that said, a student may not align with any major that they see on a particular college campus, and they just maybe more aligned with what's going on in a trade experience. And if that's the case, go with your alignment. But set yourself up to be a lifelong learner, because you may be able to get that trade, start off, and then see that you need to accumulate other skills in order to earn more, get bigger titles, or even start your own business. So you might have to just flip that switch, be like, all right, I started off with this certificate. I've done this for a few years. I've hit a ceiling. Now let me look at maybe an associate's degree, maybe a 4-year degree to gain some more and have more upward mobility.
There are certainly certificate programs that are there. You have apprenticeships that will allow you to be able to gain skill sets more quickly and then translate that into paid employment. I am biased as well in that I believe in the power of a 4-year and beyond degree. I want you to get all the letters, to have alphabets behind your name, because the more degrees you have, the more you can command what your worth is and the distinction between the value you bring. But I also understand this. We can't be so blind and myopic to push every student towards this one singular pathway. What we want them to build more than anything as a lifelong learner is professional fluidity. Wherever you start is not the sum total of what your whole life is going to be like. We change as individuals over time, or at least we should. We change as individuals over time. Your career changes with you. By academic training, I'm an industrial organizational psychologist. Yet I've built a global consultancy. I've lived and worked around the world, and I've spent the last 12 years in higher education now to be leading an institution as a president. It wasn't the 4-year degree alone in the area of psychology that made the difference. It was the creative thinking, the problem solving, the ability to communicate, work with other teams, to appreciate how to build relationships with people from other backgrounds and places different and beliefs different than mine, that has helped me to move between sectors, jobs, and ultimately career pathways. So we want students to be thinking about what is best for me in this moment, but not closing the door to yourself for the rest of your life that you may not want to do something different.
Thank you. Next question.
Hi, my name is Stormy Allen Knight, and my question is, what advice would you give to a student who simply believes their family can afford college?
Can I share a story really quickly? April 23rd, 1991. It was the day my mother's funeral was held. I was 11 years old, so I was orphaned at the age of 11. I grew up in an impoverished community, and there was nothing around me that told me that I could have or could be anything other than the statistics that was in the environment I was in. All it takes is for you to believe in yourself and to have a dream, and I encourage everyone to hold on to that. What will happen over time if you are passionate about the pursuits of your education and you spend the time investing in the learning, there will be people like you see on this panel that will cross your path, that will invest in helping you to find the means to doing it.
Yes.
I think we have to do a better job from community organizations, K through 12, higher education, philanthropic, to make sure that you know where those resources are and to ensure that they are ease of access to get to. But please don't believe that because you have started in an environment or a space where there is scarcity of cash or scarcity of resources, that does not mean you can't go on. Your stories will be the most powerful ones when you can show people that this construct of pulling yourself up by your bootstraps when you don't have boots or straps to begin with, but yet and still you can make it because you're gonna make your own shoes, you're gonna make your own bootstraps, and not only that, you're gonna make pairs that you can help other people along the way.
Yes. Thank you.
What I will add is the need for flexibility. We talked about it earlier, so that you can find a pathway that is affordable because it does exist.
Love that. Before we close tonight, I'd like to ask each of our panelists one final question. In just one sentence, what is the single most important step we can take to make college more accessible for the next generation? Let's start with Dominica.
I would say just give them the money. Like, I would like to have like a more, eloquent way of expressing this. I just don't think that it's necessary that education in a country like ours should be as expensive as it is and as inaccessible to our children as it is. I think that, we lose a lot of hope. We lose a lot of even just self-efficacy by putting these constant financial barriers in the way. I think that we are witnessing a system that is structured to benefit the wealthy and that is structured to continue to repress the impoverished, and education is one of the ways that we continue to disenfranchise our kids. And at some point or another, we just got to say yes. It just needs to be the next thing. We go to high school for free. We are able to transition through elementary school for free, and I think that our kids should just be able to go to college worry free. And so, yeah, I would say give them the money.
I'm talking directly to that next generation. If you're not given the money and you have to go out there and kill what you eat, come to our website, go to other scholarship websites, and apply for everything that you are wholly eligible for. I have looked at the data within our own organization, the students who are applying to multiple scholarships. I'm not talking about 3 or 4. I'm talking about upwards to 20 to 30, those are the students who increase their chances of getting the money. So put in full applications for as many scholarships as you are wholly eligible for.
And check back every month. New scholarships every month.
And new scholarships every month.
That's true.
Don't start at the beginning of the year and say, I didn't see it. We may open up another scholarship in January. Well, if you looked in November, you don't come back in January, you miss out on that money.
Absolutely.
For me, because I'm an educator, I will try to stick to the assignment of the advice being one sentence. We in higher education need to let go of legacy and tradition in how we operate and allow ourselves to be more agile and responsive to the needs of now to reduce these costs.
Well, there you have it.
A lot of commas in there. A lot of commas in there.
Thank you, panelists. Tonight's conversation reminds us that the dream of higher education remains incredibly powerful, but ensuring that dream remains accessible requires commitment from schools, communities, employers, and policymakers. Organizations like UNCF continue to play a vital role in opening doors for students across the country. Because when we invest in education, we're not just supporting individual students, we're strengthening families, communities, and the future of our nation. Thank you to our panelists, they were wonderful, and our in-studio audience, and thank you for tuning in, Chicago. Good night.